Hi everyone, I'm going to look at an Adobe Animate tutorial at the moment. It's a little bit of a project based around Homer Simpson. I've sped up the initial part, so for the techniques you can go back and have a look at what I've done. So I've imported and traced a bitmap, which means that it will convert it into a flash shape. So I'm just showing you can change the colour of things just by selecting them now. You can also select the background and delete it. Okay, so the purpose of the first part is for me to use the image editing tools to separate and repair various things on this image. So I want to separate different things so that we can animate them, bearing in mind that certain parts will need repairing, like here. So I've duplicated the layer, and I'm keeping one aside so that we can keep the donuts and we can have them as a separate object. So for the original Homer layer, I am just erasing, using the eraser tool to delete parts that I don't want, and I'm just using the select tool to copy and paste and then free transform existing lines. I don't want to draw lines in here because the lines are very specific in the way they are. So if I just used a brush to draw that line back in, it would just look very different. So I'm going to try and repair. Okay, so I'm just going to select this area of yellow and delete it, and now I can select that part of the belly and free transform it. So it will change the shape of his belly slightly, but you won't notice because you won't have seen the original. Now I've repaired that, I'm going to sample the colour and fill it with yellow and then just tidy up a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the duplicate layer, having hidden the original, and I'm going to select everything that isn't the donuts, just press delete and then zoom in and just delete around the edge and use the eraser to tidy up the lines a little bit. Okay, so the idea is that if we animate his belly breathing, we can then animate the donuts separately to move on top. So the next part that we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the layer again, and we are going to take out that part of the belly. So we're going to put that onto a separate layer. We're going to line it up so that when we change the pivot point we can animate it scaling. Okay, now we've got one more copy that we've called arm, so we're going to get his arm swinging as he breathes. Okay, so I'm just going to again tidy up the edges. Just get rid of those colours and then we can just select that yellow. Then we're going to draw in, using the yellow again. I'm going to draw in a bit of a curve. It doesn't have to be neat because it's going to be over the top of yellow anyway. Just having a little bit of a try at extending the line here, but looking at how far it goes up, I think what I'll do is probably take that off, because when it's on top of Homer, that line's going to look really strange. So yeah, we'll undo that and keep that. So what we need to do now is we need to keep Homer but without his arm. Okay, because if we've got it on a separate layer, we need to make sure that we delete and repair the original. Okay, so we'll just, that was wrong. Just going to copy this bit of the pillow and modify, transform, flip horizontal, and then just delete some of the bits around it. and it can just provide a little bit of an even curve for that pillow, because obviously it stops at his arm, and if we have his arm swinging forward we won't be able to see the rest of that pillow, so we need to put that in there. Okay, so just going to tidy this up, and we'll just maybe scale it in a bit and line it up. Okay, now I've selected the whole. Unfortunately I can't just select part of that outline, but I'm going to look at grabbing hold of a copy of the vertical bit on the pillow, so that we can again flip that, rotate it, and then place it into the image, get everything lined up, and then we can use the eraser to tidy it all up. Okay, so we'll tidy the yellow bit up there first, and then we'll erase the lines on the pillow that we don't want. So you can do this multiple ways, but if you've got a reasonably steady hand, you can just do it by hand. Okay, so fill that back in and delete that, and I'm going to get the yellow. I'm going to paint that line back in, and then use the paint bucket to fill all that in. Okay, so we've just got a few little bits left. One is to extend this line again for when the arm rotates backwards. Okay, we'll look at scaling it. We don't want it to be too different in size. Okay, we'll just draw a straight line across there. I've not done it close enough because it's selected all the yellow, so I just need to tidy that up a little bit. There you go. So now I'll fill that a little bit in, and that's Homer done without the arm. Okay, and the last part that we're going to look at is, for this anyway, is the little bit of drool coming out of his mouth. So we're going to have that dripping whilst he's sleeping. So we'll get another copy of the layer, and we'll select everything that isn't the drool, and we'll delete it. And instead of using the paint bucket for this, when I've selected the bits that I don't want, I'm just going to draw around the bit of drool and just select the colour, because then all the little bits of yellow around the edge, we can also change that colour. That'll be a bit of a pain using the paint bucket. Okay, so that is the video edited. Okay, for this part we're going to start looking at using movie clips and graphics. So I'm going to copy the frames that we've got here, and I'm going to insert a new movie clip called Homer MC, and I'm going to paste the frames back in there. So now we've got everything stored into a movie clip rather than on the main timeline. So I need to now go back to the main timeline and delete everything. Okay, and then we can go to our library, and we can drag our movie clip in. So essentially it will look the same, but we've now got it all contained within movie clip, so we can animate things separately. Okay, so resize it slightly, and then we're going to look at importing everything and converting it where we need to. So first one I'm going to edit is the belly. So I'm going to go to convert it to a graphic first, and I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to free transform, and I'm going to move the pivot point to the bottom, so that when we scale it, it moves from the bottom and not from the middle. Okay, so we're going to pick a duration. We can change this afterwards if we don't like it. So we're going to say do 10 and 20. So on frame 10 we're going to raise this, and then right click and create our classic tweens, so that we have that animation. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is look at the donuts. Now to just move them down slightly because we've squashed the belly at the start. and I'm going to put 2 more keyframes in using F6 onto this layer. And in the middle one, I'm going to move the donuts up so they're still sitting on top of his belly, and then create some more classic tweens. If you just preview that, we can see that the donuts are moving with him. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the arm. So we convert this to a graphic. If we rotate it, which I think I made the mistake of this, I'm going to put it inside a movie clip, and that's going to be for the crumbs later, but we'll look at that. But if I rotate it around the middle, it looks bad, so we need to move the pivot point to where we think it would be, and then rotate his arm slightly back. Similar to before, I'm going to put 2 keyframes in, but this time, because I want the arm to rotate quite slowly, I'm going to duplicate the keyframes on the other layers to double, so that then we can animate the arm over twice the length. Okay, so we'll put the keyframes for the arm in on 20 and 40. Okay, and what I'm doing here is actually wrong. You'll see when I create the tweens, I've actually rotated it on the last frame. Okay, so when I play it, it doesn't do anything for the first 20 and then just moves once. So rather than redoing it, I can just drag the frames and swap them around and put the tweens back. And then we'll have it moving as we want. Okay. And the last one we want to do is the draw. I haven't actually repaired his mouth area on the original layer, so at the moment it will not look great, but we can repair that afterwards. I'll just do it using the same techniques as before. Okay, so I'm just going to double these frames again so that we can have the draw really taking quite a long time. We don't want it going too fast. So put those tweens in, and then on the arm layer we'll copy those frames and paste them again. And then put a tween back in. Okay, so then when we get the draw, we can convert that into a graphic, zoom in, put the pivot point at the top there, and then we're going to scale it up. Plug myself in. So I'm going to have a little bit of a pause at the start where it hangs there, then it's going to grow over that, and then it's going to hang again. So I'm going to put another keyframe a bit further on. We're going to get it to drop. So once we've done that, we'll put another keyframe in, move it down off the screen. We'll also stretch it so that it does look like it's stretching a little bit as it falls. Okay, so as you press play, it just grows and then drops. Okay, I'm also just going to go to properties and colour effects and change the alpha to 0, so that over the time of that it does also fade out.